Because when you try to time the market, you've got to make two right decisions. You've got to make the right decision of when to get out, and you've got to make the right decision of when to put the money back in.
Welcome to the Your Life, Your Money podcast with Scott Searins, teaching you how to thrive in life, wealth, and retirement.
Welcome to the Your Life, Your Money podcast, where we're going to talk about and have conversations about cutting through the noise and complexities in personal finance to help you thrive in life, wealth, and retirement. My name's Scott Searins. I'll be your host, and I look forward to having a great conversation with you today. Today, a little bit different than normal, we're going to talk about questions that we've received. That way, we can learn together. You might find yourself in a similar situation or a similar scenario and be able to relate to these questions. So the thoughts, strategies, recommendations that we talk about today, you might be able to see how they could be implemented or relate to your life and take them to take action to help you build wealth and to retire with confidence. We've got questions today ranging from when to collect Social Security, where should you be saving your money to, 401ks versus Roths versus brokerage accounts. What about if you were approaching retirement and looking to buy a new place? And should you take out a mortgage or not prior to retirement? And then one of the questions is around the market being at an all-time high or towards an all-time high. And so what should you be doing with those feelings of, hey, is there a crash on the horizon? And if you've got money sitting on the side, how do you reinvest it? So we've got a lot of great questions to go through today, talk through some thoughts around these questions, but as well as strategies, recommendations to help guide you down that path to making confident decisions about your future. Now, if you haven't yet, please go to our website, lifemoneyshow.com. Again, that's lifemoneyshow.com. You might have a question on your mind. If you go and click on any one of the podcasts or videos that are out there, you'll see a box on the right-hand side that says have a question. You can put in your name, you can put in your question, and we would be happy to tackle them on the show. I'm guessing that if you've got the question, somebody out there might be thinking something similar, and we'd love to be able to provide some thoughts and recommendations around those questions that you have. Again, lifemoneyshow.com. Now, before I dive into the questions that we've received, I actually have a question for you. And my question for you is, what is on your bucket list? And here's why I've kind of thought about this question. I've recently read some of the articles about Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson going up into space. And I have to say, after reading those articles, I don't think space is by any means on my bucket list. But it really got me thinking, like, what are some of the things of importance to me in life? What do I want to add to that bucket list? What do I want to put on it? You know, like, for me, one of the things, I've never been to Australia. Like, I really want to go to Australia and see a kangaroo. Don't ask me why, just on my bucket list, right? I haven't thought through this yet, but I want to put on some activities that I can go and enjoy with my parents. I think I'm all about the experiences, right? I really like to enjoy different experiences. And so I challenge each and every one of you to say, what's on your bucket list? What are those experiences that you want to enjoy, that you want to achieve? And really put them out there, write them down. I find that a lot of times when we write something down, when we put it out there, when we tell somebody else about it, that's when we can really start to make it a reality. And sometimes, we are scared to put things on our bucket list because we're worried about our finances. We'll put it out there, let other people know about it, let your financial advisor know about it, and look at how you can make those things a reality. Now, I would say that all of my bucket list items will probably be here on Earth, not in outer space. But anyways, I think it was good to get my brain thinking about the bucket list, and I challenge each and every one of you to start thinking about those experiences that you want to enjoy and achieve throughout your lifetime, and put them out there in the world for yourself to go out and get them tackled. All right, enough about going into space. Let's talk about some of the different listener questions that we've received, and let's go through some thought strategies around these questions, our recommendations we can learn together. And maybe you've found yourself in a similar situation. Maybe you've been asking yourself the same question or something similar to it, and it will help you in your process as well. First here, we've got a question from Bradley. Bradley said, should I completely be maxing out my 401k and Roth IRA before opening a taxable brokerage account? Or is there a benefit to opening a separate brokerage account to provide more flexibility, even if those other accounts, the 401k and Roth, are not maxed out to their yearly contribution limits? Bradley has brought up a really good question here in regards to tax diversification. And I like that word that Bradley uses, flexibility. So first off, let's just talk about the three different types of accounts that Bradley mentioned. So for those that might not be familiar, these three different types of accounts and how they operate. So I want you to imagine or just picture you've got three different buckets. The first bucket that Bradley mentioned is the 401k. Now, this could be a 401k, 403b, 457, an IRA. This is the tax deferred bucket. And it's important to understand this bucket. This bucket, when you have put money into this first bucket, you got a tax deduction in the year that you put money into the bucket. Now, all of the money in that bucket grows tax deferred. Now, the key thing to help understand about this bucket is that you haven't paid any tax on it. So when you go to take money out of that bucket in the future, you are going to have to pay income tax on all of the money that you take out of that bucket in the future. All right, the next bucket that Bradley had mentioned was the Roth IRA bucket. Now, this could be Roth IRA, this could be Roth 401k, but this is your tax-free bucket. Now, this already sounds pretty good, right? Tax-free bucket. When you put money into this Roth IRA bucket, right, you've paid taxes, you put the money in. But the nice thing about this specific bucket is that it grows tax-free, and all of the withdrawals that you can make in the future, you can withdraw tax-free as well. And then the final bucket that Bradley mentioned was the brokerage account. Now, there's a lot of different names for this bucket. This could be called non-qualified. You hear a lot of people call it a brokerage account. You might hear somebody call it a taxable account or a non-retirement account. Either way, this bucket gets taxed each and every year. Basically, in this bucket, you're going to get taxed on your gains. That could be whether you're making interest in this bucket. That could be if you've got a stock that's in this bucket, or a mutual fund or an exchange traded fund, and it's gone up in value and you sell it. You could be looking at short-term gains, which get taxed at normal income tax rate, or you could be looking at long-term gains that get taxed at that more favorable tax rate. So some examples that would sit in this bucket could be a brokerage account in which you're holding, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. It could be your checking, it could be savings, it could be CDs. So the brokerage account bucket, that last bucket that Bradley had mentioned, that's the one that gets taxed each and every year. Now, some key things, and Bradley had mentioned a really good point here. He called it flexibility. It's important to understand that to make withdrawals from those first two buckets, we had that first bucket, that tax-deferred 401k bucket, or that second bucket, the Roth bucket, qualified withdrawals, meaning that you're not going to pay any sort of penalty for taking the money out of those buckets, you need to wait until age 59 and a half to make qualified withdrawals from those buckets. The brokerage account, or that last bucket that Bradley had mentioned, the after-tax bucket or non-qualified, that's a bucket that's flexible, meaning that you can put money in and take it out at any point in time. So a few points here, Bradley, to think about, or for those of you that are wondering, where should I save my money to? A few points to think about. What are your thoughts on future tax rates? And what are your thoughts on what your future tax rate and taxable income will be? And so if you feel like your taxes will be lower in the future, well, then it might make most sense to put your money into the 401k bucket, that tax-deferred bucket. So you're basically saying, hey, I think taxes will be lower in the future. I'm just going to defer all of these taxes, and then I'll pay them when I feel taxes will be lower in the future. Now, if you feel taxes will be higher in the future, then that's where you want to pay tax today, get the money in the Roth bucket, have it grow tax-free, so then when taxes are higher in the future, you can make those withdrawals tax-free. And then the last part is the brokerage account, and the brokerage account is where you're paying taxes each and every year. So you're kind of balancing that out, right? You're saying, hey, I'm going to pay some taxes today and some taxes as we go along. Now, if you're managing your brokerage account in a tax-efficient way, you're looking to not pay tax each and every year. You're looking to pay tax as you need that money. So if you hold on to items in there for more than 1 year, you can actually get the long-term gains rate, which is at a more favorable rate than short-term gains. So that's one thought process that you want to go through as you look at, hey, where should I put my money? Do you feel taxes will be higher in the future or lower in the future? Higher in the future, well, you want to start using that tax-free bucket today. If you feel your taxes will be lower in the future, you want to start using that tax-deferred bucket or 401k bucket today. So that's one reason. Well, that's one area to think about when you're saying, hey, which tax bucket should I put my money into? But the other area to think about is exactly what Bradley had mentioned here, and it's called flexibility. Right? And that flexibility comes around age 59 and a half. So if you feel like, boy, I want to save this money, but I might need it prior to that age, then yes, you would want to start using that brokerage account because you'll have more flexibility, have the ability to take money in and out of that account prior to age 59 and a half without any sort of penalty. So it all depends, but I'm going to kind of leave you with this in regards to this. One is, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but what's your company match? And so when you're looking at your company and your 401k and 403b, 457, or Roth 401k, one of the things is that you at least want to be making sure that you're getting your company match. Right? That's money that your company is helping to save for you and putting into your retirement savings. And as long as you've stayed there until you're 100% vested, then that is your retirement money. So one thing is getting the company match. Do you need to be maxing those out, or is it okay to split between the 401ks, the Roths, and the brokerage accounts? My personal experience, my personal opinion is that it's okay to split between the three. And the reason I say that is because I'm a believer in tax diversification. So you don't necessarily need to max out your 401k. If you've got that ability, you may want to start looking at other accounts to help provide you that tax diversification, because we have no idea where taxes will go in the future. And so if you've got money in all three buckets, now you've got that diversification to be able to pull money from different types of accounts as you need it in the future. So, personal opinion, a mix of all three is good. We don't know where the tax rates are going. And I think to help you guide you down your question here, you were on the right track about talking about flexibility, and putting some money into that brokerage account will help as well. It just gives you some really good tax diversification. So that way in your future, if you're like, hey, I want to go on this trip, or I want to buy this RV, or I've got a big purchase that I want to make, you don't have to worry about all of your money being in one account that might cause you income taxes. You now have other accounts to be able to go to make withdrawals from. So great question, and hopefully I was able to help lead you and others down the path of where to contribute your money to. All right, let's move on to our next question here. This one was submitted on our website, lifemoneyshow.com. You can go there, click on any of the podcasts or videos on the right-hand side. You'll see the box that if you have a question, go ahead, put your question in there and hit submit. So the question we received was, if you retire at age 62 and collect Social Security money, will it adjust once you reach full retirement age? Now, you might see this all the time. Some people say FRA, which is full retirement age. And let's just understand that at full retirement age, that's when you are able to collect what the government calls is your primary insurance amount. Sometimes you might see that as PIA. But for the normal world, right, we just kind of look at that as our full retirement age, or the benefit that we'll get if we retire at that normal retirement age. And that full retirement age is a different age for everyone. It's all based on when you were born. It could be 66, could be 66 and 2 months, it could be age 67. Now the question, right, if you retire at 62 and collect Social Security money, will it adjust? Well, if you retire at 62 and collect Social Security at age 62, you're going to get a reduced amount from full retirement age. And let me just give you an example here. I went to the Social Security website and ran an example so we could walk through this example to help understand the response to the question. So I put in, let's just say somebody was born in 1960. Let's just say they were making around $100,000 a year. And what the Social Security website said is that at full retirement age, they would estimate that this person would make about $2,535 a month in Social Security. Now again, that's if they waited to full retirement age. But if they took Social Security at as early as age 62, they would only be able to collect $1,677 a month. So if you take Social Security early, and you can take it anytime, any month between age 62 and 67, or between 67 and 70, you can take it any time or any month between any of those days or those years. But if you take it early, you're going to get a reduced amount. And to the question here, will it adjust? No, it will not. Once you start taking it, there's no going back. Well, there is a way of going back, which means you have to pay back everything that you've taken. I don't really see that as a viable option or a feasible option. So once you take it, you're taking the reduced amount. The only thing that you'll get, so back to our example, right? The reduced amount, full retirement age, $2,535 a month. The reduced amount, $1,677 a month. So the only adjustments that you would get on that $1,677 a month would be the cost of living adjustments that the government provides each and every year. And those can range from nothing to 1%, 2%, 3%. It all depends on what the government feels that should be provided from an inflation standpoint. And they've got a calculation that they go through when determining that. But once you start the claim, that's the amount that you're going to get. There are no adjustments after that. Now, if one of the things that you can do is delay claiming, right? So if you waited, you could wait till full retirement age, or you can delay claiming from full retirement age to age 70. And from full retirement age to age 70, you're actually going to get an 8% increase each and every year that you delay claiming your benefit until age 70, in which you have to take it. But very good question here in regards to Social Security. A few other things to think about in regards to this question is you want to be thinking about, now this person said, hey, if you retire, but if you were planning to still work and collect at age 62, if you make over a certain threshold, which is somewhere, don't quote me on this, you'd have to look it up on the IRS website, but let's just say it's somewhere around like $18,000 a year. If you're making over that threshold, then you would actually, I'll call it, be penalized. They're going to take back some of your Social Security for making over that threshold. So that's one thing that's a key point to think about if you're going to think about collecting Social Security before age 62. So Social Security is a really big decision. A lot of people just base their Social Security decision on a longevity calculation. But what I'm here to tell you and help guide you on is that there's a lot more factors than just longevity, right? That payback of when you feel like you'll get the most out of Social Security. You really want to also be factoring into it your expenses, like how much do you need to live each and every month? How much do you have in your bucket of money? How much retirement savings do you have? What other income sources will you have coming in, like a pension or rental income? Are you married or are you single? And then, like I had mentioned earlier, the employment part. So all of this, what I would really recommend is putting together a retirement income plan. It takes into account all of those different sources that I just mentioned and will help you determine the proper timing to take your Social Security, to also help make sure that you're getting the maximum benefit, not only from Social Security, but also from all of the retirement savings that you've saved up. Great question on Social Security. Hopefully I've provided you with some great points there in regards to when you may want to potentially take it and other factors to keep in mind. Okay, our next question here is from Justin. Justin says, I'm planning to retire within 2 years. A close family member of mine is still out of work due to the pandemic, and they need some help to pay off credit card bills that have piled up after they've burned through all of their emergency savings. What is the best way to tap into my savings to help them out? Now, Justin, we're going to get to exactly what you've asked there of what's the best way to tap into my savings. But one of the things that Justin left out here is how much. How much is Justin looking to help out his friends in regards to their scenario here? And boy, it's what a tough scenario, right? And when you're working with family, plus you see people that are out of work, a lot of emotions become involved. And so, hey, I hope that everything goes well and that your family is able to find what they want to do here very soon as things continue to open up and progress continues to pick up in our economy. And so I think there's really two parts to this. There's an emotional part and there's a logical part. But like I mentioned earlier, one of the things that Justin didn't include is how much. So, I mean, we could be talking about hundreds of dollars, or maybe we are talking about thousands of dollars. And the other kind of key thing that Justin mentioned here is that he's within a couple years of his own retirement. And so I think that's the first important part to really think about. First, how much? I mean, if we're talking about hundreds of dollars or if we're talking about thousands of dollars, either way, it's really important to understand that and think about that number. But you mentioned that you're 2 years away from retirement. Now, if we're 25 years away from retirement, we've got a lot of time to recover from this, right? The ups and downs and being invested. And the reason I bring this up is because one of the things that you really have to think about here is, what if the person did not pay you back? What if you put this money out there, you went to help somebody out, but they didn't pay you back? And I know what you're thinking. Boy, it's family. It would never happen. They were so close. But you have to go down the path of what if they didn't pay you back. And if there's 25 years in front of you, a lot of time to recover. But you mentioned 2 years. And so if we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars here, one of the questions I really want you to ask yourself as you go down this path, and we'll get to best way to tap into the funds, but first I want you to ask yourself, could this put you in jeopardy if they didn't pay you back? You know, one of the things I see a lot when working with different people is that, and gosh, this is great that they want to help their children with their college education. But I've seen where sometimes couples will take it too far, will they put their own retirement in jeopardy to get their kids through college. And you have to remember they have a lot of time to recover from their situation. And so they might have, say 50 years to recover from that because they're just going to college, where you're looking at a time period, right, that could be 30 or 40 years or shorter. And so, one, is this going to put you in jeopardy? So let's just say that it's not going to put you in jeopardy. What is the order that you would want to tap your funds? Well, kind of relates to our first question, right, on flexibility and which tax buckets have you put your money into. So first I would say, hey, you'd want to look at your taxable bucket. This could be like checking, savings, CDs, brokerage accounts, because by taking money out of this bucket, you may not be looking at any sort of taxes to take money out of this bucket to help them. And so that way you're not incurring extra burden or taxes to help out your family members here. Now, if you're looking at a brokerage account, you could, again, if you're going to sell something that you've held for less than a year, you could be looking at short-term gains, which is an ordinary income tax rate if you're taking out gains. But you might have long-term gains, or you might not have any taxes at all. So I would really focus on those taxable accounts first, or a tax-free account. Money that you've had maybe just sitting on the sidelines that's not invested, so that way you can keep your invested money continuously growing for you. However, if you don't have any money in those types of accounts, well, then next would be like your tax deferred accounts, which would be like your IRAs, 401ks, your Roths. But just remember here, when you go to tap that account, right, the IRAs, 401ks, I'm sorry, I said Roth, but that wouldn't be in this one. It'd just be like 403bs, 457s. When you go to tap that account, you're not only helping your family member, but you're also helping the IRS, because as you pull money out of those accounts, you're going to have to pay income tax on every dollar that you pull out. So just really keep that in mind as you go to help folks out, that you are also potentially could be incurring some taxes yourself. Now, you can gift up to $15,000 a year to a person. I think there's some emotional sides to this as well, right? I said logic and emotion, financial and emotional side. So one of the things I really want you to ask yourself is, if the person doesn't pay you back, and it could happen, is this going to jeopardize your relationship with them? And mixing money and family can be a very difficult thing. And so I really want you to think about that. Again, I know that you feel that they will, and I'm sure right now they're telling you that they will. But if the person did not pay you back, is this going to jeopardize your relationship with them? And it may help to put a timeline to it, right? To create a loan around it, maybe a written contract around it. And that way it becomes a little bit more logical than emotional. But I really want you to walk through that as well. So hopefully this helped you kind of in the order to tap your funds, but I also want you to think about the emotional part of it as well. All right, I've got one more question here. We've got Ron. Ron is asking about this. He says, I'm anticipating a market crash any day now. So I have about half of my IRA in cash. That means I have about $350,000 that's not really making any money. So I don't want to just leave it there for too long. But how long should I wait before I reinvest it? Now, I'm guessing Ron's not the only one with these thoughts on his mind right now. As you watch the market, and we continuously see the stories in the news of people saying, boy, the market's at an all-time high, and it just hit a new all-time high. And so they get us feeling really good, but sometimes they can also put those stories out there that say, oh, and the market might crash, or we're going to have a bear market. And the truth is, they don't really know. The news doesn't know. Nobody can predict what the market's going to do, so they're just creating a lot of emotion in people. And I want you to first think about this. People have been saying the same thing all the way from, they said, after we had that crash in 2008, they said the same thing from 2010 all the way through 2020, right? 2010, is it going to crash again? 2011, is it going to crash again? 2012. And all those times there wasn't a crash. Now, COVID did happen, right? But then you even have to look, even since COVID, where is the market at today? So I bring that up because I don't want you to think that I'm saying that it is going to crash, because it didn't during all those times. But I'm also not saying that it's not going to crash, right? And I think this brings up one key point, is that, and when we work with clients, we do not try to time the market. Because when you try to time the market, you've got to make two right decisions. You've got to make the right decision of when to get out, and you've got to make the right decision of when to put the money back in. And history has shown us, and a lot of mutual fund managers and exchange-traded fund managers and hedge fund managers out there have shown us that it's not possible to time the market perfectly throughout life. And so therefore, one of the suggestions I would make is, first off, is having a long-term focus. Taking the timing out of it and aligning it with your plan. So my thoughts here today, my recommendations and thoughts really assume a long-term strategy and assume that a person's taking this as a long-term investor. So then, if so, I would say, hey, what is your age, and when do you want to start making withdrawals from your money? And based on history, right, because we have had market crashes, and some market crashes have rebounded as fast as the one like COVID, right, over a few months. And then there's market crashes that have taken years, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years to recover. And so based on that, let's take how much that you might need to withdraw out of this money, right? So you said $350,000. Out of that $350,000, how much do you think that you might need in withdrawals over the next, say, 5 to 7 years? And based on that, let's get that part on the safer side of your investments. Now, that could be cash, that could be bonds, that could be indexed annuities, that could be your like CDs. I'm just talking the safer side of your overall investment picture. Because again, if the market were to crash, you're going to need that money. And so now you've got that money available to you to withdraw from. And then anything that doesn't fit into that bucket, right, the 5 to 7 year bucket, let's get the rest of it working for you in the market. Let's get it growing for you. And why did I pick that number? Well, again, kind of based on history, but again, the past does not guarantee future results. But based on history, if we did have a correction, well, hey, that's 7+ years, right? Now we might see that rebound and continue to grow, kind of looking at historical trends of the market. But that, again, doesn't guarantee what's going to happen in the future. But get that on the growth side of your bucket. Now, here's one other thing to think about. I'd recommend taking emotion out of all of this, right? So figure out a strategy of how you're going to put this money back in. Because if you watch the news and you watch the radio and listen to different reports, it might try to spook you or get you off having this long-term focus, having this long-term strategy. So how do we want to get back in? A couple of thoughts here. One is just, again, after you decide what's going to stay on the safer side and then what's going on the growth side, just put the lump sum back into the market. Put it back in. into your accounts, diversified. Hopefully you're diversified in the market, right? Meaning that you own different asset classes, but just putting the lump sum back in. Now, if you're the type that's going to look at this money as it goes back in, and if the next day it crashes or the market drops and you're like, oh man, I knew I shouldn't have done it, then instead of putting that lump sum back in, you can look to dollar cost average your money back in, meaning maybe take a 3, 4, 5, 6 month period and say, okay, each and every month. So let's just say out of your $350,000, you're going to put $200,000 back in. Well, divide that $200,000 by 6 months, and then each and every month just go and put that money back into the growth side of your accounts. Again, this is I realize the market can create a lot of emotion around us, but hopefully this helps you take the emotion out of it, focus on it logically, and focus on it from a long-term standpoint. A lot of great questions that came in. Hopefully you've been able to take the thoughts and recommendations, maybe relate them to your own picture, to relate them to what you have going on in your life. And if we didn't answer or tackle what was on your mind today, go to lifemoneyshow.com. Again, that's lifemoneyshow.com. Click on any of the podcasts, click on any of the videos. On the right-hand side there, you'll see have a question. Put your question in. Be happy to tackle it on the show. Also, don't forget, subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast subscriber. We're continuously coming out with new episodes to help you thrive in life, wealth, and retirement. Go out, live life today, and be financially confident. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Make it a great day.
Sierens Financial Group is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and Sierens Financial Group, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Sierens Financial Group, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Sierens Financial Group, Inc.